Hey everyone, George Christie here with Wine Industry Network. Welcome to Bold Predictions, our wine industry leadership conference. And we've got 3 sessions today, very exciting. Our first session is a panel discussion. We've got 4 industry experts representing different facets of the industry to share their thoughts, to share their insights on what we just experienced in 2022 and what they think we can expect to experience in 2023. So a really exciting way to kick off the day. Our second session, we're looking at the state of the bulk wine and grape market. Very similar. We're going to take a look at 2022 and what some of the indicators are telling us we might expect in 2023. That session is going to be presented by Greg Livengood and Johnny Leonardo, both with the Ciotti Company. Again, that's going to be a very good session. Our third session today, maximizing tax benefits. And this session is looking at a couple of government programs, 2 in particular, the Research and Development Tax Credit and the Employee Retention Tax Credit, and talk a little about the programs in general. How do you qualify? And in some cases, maybe some things you may want to look out for. But if you're in the industry and you haven't taken advantage of these 2 programs, you definitely want to check out this session. It's going to be presented by Stephanie Banuelo and Mitch Feldman, both with corporate tax incentives. So that's going to be a really good session as well. Before we jump into things, I want to thank our sponsors. It's without their support, we wouldn't be able to offer these presentations for free. Beginning with our presenting sponsor, a big sponsor today, Heffernan Insurance Brokers. Thank you for your support. Our session sponsors, Avalara and Turrentine Brokerage. And of course, our supporting sponsors, Comerica Bank, Wine Industry Advisor, wineindustry.jobs. Thank you for your support. Again, we wouldn't be able to offer these for free without their contribution. Now, as is always the case, we want these sessions to be as interactive as possible. So to that end, we always pre-record these a couple of days in advance for quality purposes. But the good news is all of our speakers are going to be watching this broadcast right alongside with you, and they're going to be in the chat room. So as questions come to you, type them into the chat room. They'll take those questions as they come in. You do not need to wait till the end of the presentation to ask those questions. So please take advantage of that. Okay, well, I think that about covers it. Once again, I want to thank our sponsors, Heffernan Insurance Brokers, Avalara, Turrentine Brokerage, Comerica Bank, Wine Industry Advisor, and Wine Industry Jobs for their support. I want to thank you for your time. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Damian Wilson, who's going to lead our opening panel discussion. Damian is the Hamill Family Faculty Chair for the Wine Business Institute at Sonoma State University. Damian, take it away.
This session is sponsored by Avalara, tax compliance done right, and Turrentine Brokerage, supporting growers and wineries since 1973 by providing the best data-driven analysis to create profitable supply strategies and opportunities.
Part of our job is to help clients mitigate risk. And so it's more than just the insurance policy. It's what are the resources that we can bring to the property level to help them mitigate risk and plan for events such as wildfires. A steady hand is someone that you can absolutely 100% depend on to be there when you need them and even when you don't think you need them.
Thanks very much for that, George, for such a keen introduction for all of us here today. Let's go into the first of our bold predictions. I'd like to let everyone know in the audience, just to make a point of putting in your comments and putting your questions and all of your thoughts on the topics we're discussing today in the live chat. Our presenters will be responding to those in due course. And so let's start with the first topic of our bold predictions, the element of the changing demographics of wine consumers in the US. Dale, would you like to start us off with that?
Thank you, Damian, and appreciate being here. Hello, and honored to be on this panel with my esteemed colleagues. The first bold prediction that I would say is that in 2023, this is the year that the wine industry will really start to take collective action against our looming demand problem, and that we will coalesce around the fact that the demographics of the country are changing, and that those demographics don't necessarily really match with where the wine business's core consumer lies. So as we see more diversity coming into the multicultural consumer playing a bigger role, we in the industry need to address that. And I think that my prediction is that this is the year we do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it'd be interesting to see a perspective from some of the smaller producers as well. Some of those luxury producers in the element of the wine sector, just to see some comparisons. Falana, do you want to tell us what it's been like in Domain?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And it's an honor to be here with everyone. And thank you to the Wine Industry Advisor. Millennials cannot be targeted as one huge group. We also need to pay attention to the varying demographics within the age group, as existing millennials with drinkers are more diverse and have more prominent values. They want to drink brands that reflect their values, right? It's about action. Do you have a social statement? Do you have an environmental statement? Are you diverse? Are your teams diverse? And those are really important values that people need to be authentic and genuine in their marketing. What we've seen at Domain Estates is just, it's important that we're doing the right things, not only on paper, but behind the scenes, and also believing in what we're doing. And it's not a check in the block. And those are what's important to millennials. It is not a one size fits all marketing strategy for everybody. It's different for the big box than it is for the small producers as well.
Yeah, I like this prediction, Dale, because I find it kind of comical that you would say this is the year we fix it, because this is like the oldest and most predictable problem. And I mean, this plays into the economy and all these other things that I think I might talk about in another context. But like, these demographic changes are predictable over a long period of time, and one thing we can't predict is economics and whether there's going to be a recession in the year to come. What you can say is that Latinas with a college degree, for example, and education is the number one driver of alcohol consumption among the many demographic factors, like, have quadrupled in the United States in the last 15 years. And so if you're not marketing the Latino women, which are a disproportionately large part of young people, then you're probably not going to connect with young people. And if you don't have Latinas empowered within your organization, you're not going to have the know-how to market to these people and be honest with that marketing. And the one thing I'll say about this, and this is maybe, how do you circle the square of that question? Like, how do I, approach young people being shorthand for diverse people? The majority of alcohol consumers under 26 are women, for example. But like, how do I market to these people without alienating my core consumer? And the answer I would have to that is, well, your core consumer isn't, monolithic either. If we are an industry that is traditionally marketed to white men or to even, wealthy people in general, marketing to Latinos doesn't mean, or to Black people doesn't mean you're going to alienate that core consumer. I think the key is that you're going to discover something. Hip hop is universal, reggaeton is universal. These are things that are actually probably going to delight the consumers that you've kind of struggled to surprise in interesting ways. So, the key to delighting your existing group of consumers is marketing to the ones that you've ignored for decades.
And if I could just jump in real quick, sorry, Falana, I think I jumped in on you here, but bringing two thoughts together there. And I think something that Falana said is you need to treat everybody as an individual. When that person shows up at your tasting room, when you're thinking about how you're going to market to them, don't enter that with any sort of a stereotype. That whatever that person who comes into and has an appointment at your winery, don't judge them by how they look, because they are going to be along a spectrum of knowledge in the wine category. They could be extraordinarily educated. They could be in a discovery mode. It could be all of those things. And I think that Bucard's comment on inclusion is also that think about that in your tasting room as well. Who are you hiring? What does that person look like? I would think about multi-language. I would think about things like that, and trying to make your environment a comfortable place for those consumers to enjoy your product.
Yeah, there's definitely been a disconnect between wine producers and marginalized consumers. And the solution is not to keep saying the same thing louder, which is what the majority of the wine industry does. That they just keep saying the same thing louder and louder. But to have a conversation with the existing consumer and a diverse consumer, which is why working directly with the entrepreneurs who support their programming and access to the wine industry to expand fine wine communities that will help keep this going and keep making it strong, and creating programming and ensuring that you have a team of people that is very diverse, that's talking with these people and not talking at them. And that's a big difference.
Yeah, I'm hearing a pretty common message here amongst us. We're talking about the fact that we're needing to pay attention, individualize the attachment and the connection we've got with our customer base, and we're also appreciating the need to be authentic and with integrity when we're communicating. So all of these points which have come up in recent years, let's try and move the topic along to the issue of how we're going to go about connecting with these consumers, with providing them what they're after. Dale, do you want to kick us off with a discussion about the changes in different subsegments and categories in the wine sector?
Well, actually, I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curve here, because the first thing I think that it was reminded by the discussion we just had, and perhaps the fact that we're recording this pretty early in the morning and I haven't had my breakfast yet, is food. And thinking about food. And I know that recently I was out on LinkedIn and I saw a winery kind of highlighting the tour of their winemakers' dinners that they were doing across the country. And as I looked at all of those, it was a very consistent menu, and none of it screamed multicultural. Right? And so when I think about these things like a winemaker's dinner, absolutely, to Bukar's saying, like, hey, you probably want to do something with that core consumer that does that, the things you've done, but push back out and think about this differently, and think about a different restaurant, think about a different chef, and bring your wine into a more diverse food profile, and introduce that, because that's an area that I think the wine category, where we've lost some ground to beer and spirits on the dining occasion, and those two categories have done a great job of entering into and pairing craft beer with food and signature cocktails with food. That's in my mind, from the wine industry, that's our space. We need to own that, and we need to go win that back. So I'll throw out the topic of food.
Yeah, and I love that you say that, Dale, because I was just on a previous panel, and the one thing that I think is very important and is low-hanging fruit is getting our distributors involved when it comes to on-ramping new consumers in casual dining and also fine dining with wine by the glass programming, right? That still today is the best advertisement for a new wine that's coming into the market that is available in casual dining or fine dining, and being able to have your wines distributed and sold into a restaurant is still important. The on-premise is growing. It's definitely not something that we should never walk away from. It took a big hit during the pandemic. We need to see it come back. And being able to have these really unique offerings at a restaurant paired with food is so important. And it shows that, wine should be marketed as a lifestyle for their lifestyle, which goes along with food.
And so I want to say this. One, there's so many things I want to say, and I'll try and kind of channel it into a focused thing. But I will say, Philana, just to quick side note, we talk about the wine industry having a diversity problem. Distributors face very, very, very little accountability for their lack of diversity. They're quite insulated from the consumer. They're quite protected by laws in a lot of cases, and so they don't really respond that well. A lot of family-owned companies that don't respond that well to pressure. And I think it is really important that if you're trying to sell and message around a certain, consumer and life and cultural experience, that sales force is also important. That's something that, as you're looking out at distributors, is also going to become a big consideration. But I think it's, the point Dale was trying to make is wine is a Eurocentric drink. At least our conception of wine, of they all have French names for a reason, or Spanish names. They're a very Eurocentric thing, and most people aren't going to say, I can relate to this drink because you eat it with lamb chops. I mean, is there anything less relatable than a rack of lamb, which is the tasting note, like food pairing that people often put together? Where if we talk about cultural, acculturation and sharing of cultures, I eat a lot of. I'm Venezuelan, of course, but like I eat a lot of tacos. I eat Vietnamese food. I eat Japanese food. Like, it's not just culturally diverse people that are out there eating, culturally diverse foods. And so if you want to connect with those people, again, marketing with those individuals in mind is probably going to attract people like me who are interested in these other things. And I think that's kind of just to reiterate what Dale said in a different way.
I just want to say that I like the fact that we're expanding the topic to bring everyone in here who's watching. I want to think about or apply what we're talking about with the concepts of the different food groups, the importance of diversity, the embracing nature that we're pushing the wine industry into for this year. Let's look at how that's going to be impacted by the different changes across the segments in the market. How do you see that taking place, Dale, with the impact on supply to the market from the entry price points up to the luxury sector?
So the first thing that I would say in this area is that, and you've heard this from probably every analyst who works in the wine industry, that the data has been a mess for 3 years, and it has been that we went through an incredible shock. Not only as a nation, as a world with a pandemic, but that really disrupted everything about the flow of product and how we measure where products are going and what products are selling. And we've seen a lot of movement in that. I think that when we look at different price segments, in early days, we saw the pandemic, we saw incredible growth in the low end. And that was people stocking up, thinking that A, there were shortages, B, I'm trying to make as few trips anywhere as I can. And now we've seen that come back, and we've seen the premium segment really turn into being, and premium is such a crazy word. I would say that everything over $15 has been showing really strong growth for the last 3 years, and rightly so. And that doesn't only show in the sales numbers. You see that in consumer information. You see that in every type of data that you look at. The category has moved up, and the high end has done very, very well. When we see the direct-to-consumer reports that come out, what we're going to see is that the over $100 segment grew faster than all others, and that a lot of those are products that are not necessarily being consumed, that those products, a lot of that might be going into cellars. And I think that's one of the interesting things about our category that is a little bit different than others, is that, and when I was at Constellation Brands, had good exposure to the beer business. A depletion in the beer business equals consumer consumption, right? Those things are directly correlated. Where in the wine business, not necessarily. A lot of us have cellars. A lot of people lay wine down, and especially at that high end. And I think we've seen a fair bit of restocking of cellars, as people were drinking things out of their cellar, trying to avoid shopping and things along that line. So I really do think that we're going to see a change in that. I guess the next bold prediction that I'll put out there is that in calendar year 2023, that the $4.50 to $7.99 category will contribute the most volume growth to the category. That's not saying that the other categories in the high end, over 15, over 20, isn't going to grow. I just think we're going to see really strong growth in that area, driven by a lot of 3-liter box wine. We've done a lot of rationalization at the shelf on the premium brands. So I think that's another area that we need to watch for next year, is a rebound and a comeback of that $4.50 to $7.99, $8 segment.
And just on that, Dale, I want to throw to Falana, because Falana, Domain is at the opposite end, is the luxury end of the market. How does that impact you, and how do you see the changing nature of demand in the different price segments affecting Domain?
Thank you. Look, defining luxury is, again, we look at it as probably over $50 to $60 a bottle is how we define luxury at Domain Estates. And as we continue to grow, what we've seen in the recent growth of all of our brands is the fact that we have authentic story and messaging, and we talk about the winemakers, and everything is very, very natural in how we market all of our wine brands. And so how that has been able to increase in the luxury segment is it's done extremely well. I mean, we are not, unfortunately, we're not playing in the $4.99 range, right? And I think there's going to be a lot of suppliers. I look forward to seeing Dale's prediction come, see what happens with it, because they'll be battling it out at the shelf. That's a tough price point. Where on the luxury segment, people are drinking better, they're drinking differently, and they're more specific about what they want, and they want to know what's behind the bottle that they're drinking. And I think that's important. I want to quickly bring back to also Bucard's statement about distributors. I understand I came from the distributor business for 20 years. I've served every level of distribution at a distributor for 20 years and understand the lack of diversity and the challenges that they have. I also know that with a lot of the big distributors buying up the small distributors, it is important to manage your business at a high level with distribution to ensure that your business even has a chance, that your wine brand has a chance. It's important. And it all goes in line with what we're saying today, especially with the predictions that we're putting out there. But whether or not it's going to be the luxury price point or the value price wines, it's being able to manage your business at that level to ensure that you're getting the visibility that you want.
I would just get two things here. One is, I feel like the wine industry has been fretting for so long about, attracting young people. And, it's important to remember one of the most defining characteristics of being a young person is being poor. I remember bouncing a check, paying for rice in college. And yes, I'm old enough to have paid with checks at some point in my life, my adult life. Which is to say that, the reason these lower price points are really important is because they are the places where young people can actually afford wine. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to continue with those price points, but borrow from some of that natural messaging, that aspirational messaging, to revamp and revitalize that segment of the market. I'll stop there and let somebody else share, and then I'll get back to the other point.
You know what? I'm going to again bring two things together here that you two just said that are I think very interesting and very pertinent. And another thing that changed during the pandemic was how retailers and restaurateurs purchased wine from their distributor. And that more and more has become a digital experience. And Bucard, I'm going to throw this over to you because this is certainly your bailiwick, right? Is that as you start thinking about that, and Philana hit it, you've got to be relevant if you're gonna get to market and you're entering the 3-tier system. You have got to have a robust digital asset program, because your brand is being represented in that space. It is not being represented in a printed format. And that is going to enable everything within your business. And it's vitally important that you manage that part of your business, which is Bucard's expertise.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add here. If you haven't built out your e-commerce or digital presence, managing your brand's assets on retailer websites and things like that. If you haven't done that already, I'm really I'm not sure what I'm going to say to convince you to do more. But the simple point is, the people that shop online are incredibly wealthy relative to the general population. They tend to be younger, and any marketer knows that you are trying to meet consumers where they are at a point of them being young, and the goal is to spend the money now and win over a loyal consumer for decades to come. And the reality is, your young, wealthy consumer is an online consumer, and that's really important to have that strong digital presence. The way you do that, hire young people and give them the power to do cool stuff. The only thing I would say, and this is about the economy in the year ahead, and I do want to reiterate that economists are terrible at predicting recessions. However, our economists are predicting a small recession, and I think the thing that we are also expecting is in a recession, rich people spend a lot more of their money in the on-premise typically. And so when they feel income constrained, when they're nervous about economics, they tend to pull back on the on-premise, and that means they might move money back to the off-premise. And I just want to say really quickly, we got, as an industry, especially the super premium side, learned a lesson during the pandemic, right? is that having access to the wholesale channel, having these great digital sales channels is like a really good way to diversify and spread risk out and connect with new consumers. And I'm always concerned that the industry is going to get over exuberant, is going to try and go back to just being in the high end restaurants. And I think that would be a big mistake. I think you want to be in those places to capture consumers as we see some channel shift during, if not an economic downturn, economic turmoil and uncertainty.
Yeah, there's a lot we're discussing here, and we're expanding out into the importance of elements of talking about the younger consumers, encouraging those generations to come into the wine sector, and we're already entering into that. How do we bring more people in using platforms which the wine industry hasn't traditionally been the most adept at? We know from the pandemic how much more popular online retail became. Certainly at the start, all these new consumers were forced to adapt to a platform for purchase that they didn't know about. And just in the last couple of days, we've been looking at research about how wineries are often getting into the online platform. And it's primarily, just as you explained, Burkhard, younger consumers starting at wineries and working for a place where the owner or manager has turned around and said, well, you're young, how do we get involved in e-commerce, or how do we engage in social media? So to take a bold prediction for this year is certainly that the wine industry will be more deliberate in its impact of trying to engage in the online platform. So I think that element of transition, how are we going to move into that element of transition? How are we going to bring more people into wine and watch them move through in the coming move through from entry to transition to the luxury sector? And let's I was going to say, I'll turn to Falana, because this is an important one for you in the luxury sector. How do you bring more people and attract them to you, because they don't start drinking luxury wines?
Absolutely. I think it's important to talk about the values and what is important to them. And I work for a very young CEO who's fantastic. He moves at an extremely fast pace. He's incredible. And the things that are important, we market we're not looking at marketing to okay, let's just market to a young person. We are doing it just as human to human, just based on, who you are as a person, right? And to us, the things that are important is, we think about wellness. Sustainability, organics, biodynamics, they all lend themselves to a new wave of wellness, not this calorie, sugar-focused diet culture rhetoric and, seltzers that, everyone is saying, okay, people are drinking seltzers because it's 100 calories. Well, they're drinking like 5 of them. So it's more trendy than it is healthy. And if you look at advertisements, even in the fashion business, you're not, skinny is not healthy. That's not what healthy is, right? So being obsessed constantly about, calorie counting and doing those kinds of things on our side, and I'm just speaking for Domain, this is just our opinion. I want to make sure I'm not speaking for the entire generation here. Is it's all about just, for us, sustainability, environmental, having a social impact message, and doing the right things, and being a company of action, and being able to tell those stories authentically, hiring a diverse team, and being yourself, and going out there into the market and working with your distributors and your partners and your restaurants, and doing the right things by your brands. And people will take notice, and they will be interested in what you're doing. And that to us has been extremely successful.
Thanks for that. And I'd really like to throw back to Burkhard just to find out his perspectives on that digital field. How is it, or what would you say that wine can do to bring more people into the sector and to help them enjoy from what might be their first 3-liter box wine, moving their way through to tasting that first ever sip of Domain Estates?
The online world is one that is kind of the natural living space for that super high-end consumer. It is actually dramatically underrepresented in data providers like Nielsen, because this is a world where people buy Bordeaux futures over the internet when they're not fraudulent, of course. But the digital world, to something Falana said, and Falana before this call encouraged us to disagree with one another. or maybe this was you, Damien, I can't remember who said it, but that we'll expect more investment in e-commerce in the year ahead. And I actually expect exactly the opposite. I think we saw e-commerce sales flat or decline last year. I think there was a lot of wine clubs, especially digitally native wine clubs, that are in dire straits economically. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of temptation when you think about where can we pull back money, protect margins, where can we pull back funding in the year ahead. I think e-commerce is going to be one of those places that companies target. And I'm about to release a report today, in the next couple of weeks, in which I surveyed all the e-commerce leaders from our industry and asked them to rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10 on all these different factors. And I found that there are companies with 30 people who are rating themselves 8 out of 10 on a particular domain, and there are companies with only 1 e-commerce employee rating themselves 8 out of 10. And so how is that happening? Well, it's you think you're good at this. You think you know what you're doing when it comes to e-commerce and that you can pull back investment. The reality is that these smaller companies, like, you cannot overinvest in your digital capabilities because there's so much catching up to do. There's so much work to be done, and there's so much need for you to be creative that, like, if you don't have the resources, if you don't have the kind of free time within those departments and those teams, you're not going to learn how to do this well. And it's going to be critical to winning new consumers. It's where your wealthy people are going to be shopping a lot of the time. So don't do that. Don't pull back your investment in your digital operations.
In the spirit of disagreement, you can overspend. Just you do need to invest in this space. But for me, I want to just point one thing out, that digital does not have to equal e-commerce. And yes, you want to get that sell, but it's also about reaching the right consumers. And with the right digital platform, it's how do you narrow that scope of your advertising dollars? How am I going to get that more targeted so that the old marketing adage, I know 50% of my advertising dollars are being wasted. I just don't know which 50%. The digital world can help you narrow that down and take that down so that you know that your messaging is actually reaching people who are interested in the wine category. So that, to me, is also, and I agree with Bukhar that you've got to really go into that space and you need to have it. But it goes beyond just the idea of commerce and does go into advertising and reach and how my distributors communicate my product. It runs through everything that you do if you're going to be successful in that area.
Yeah, and to kind of illustrate a little bit about what Dale might be talking about, I always find it amazing that companies' DTC businesses aren't being used to enrich the data they use for targeting consumers in, say, digital marketing, right? So let's say you have this incredible email list from your, tasting room. The fact that you wouldn't use that to build a lookalike audience in Facebook is, like, ridiculous. And a key here is, like, hey, I know where I have distribution. You can do this thing called geofencing, which basically means I only market to people within a geographic area on social media. So you can then do this kind of geo-targeting to make sure you're only targeting people that look like people who have visited your winery in markets where your brand is available. And the goal might not necessarily be for you as a brand to actually drive traffic, even though that is a primary objective. It might be the storytelling that you're able to send at, like, you don't have the scale to send a salesperson there every day of the week, but maybe that is a message that you give to your distributor saying, hey, look at the ways I'm supporting the brands in this market. Maybe that's a story you're able to tell to your retailer saying, hey, I'm sending foot traffic for people to come get this wine there. Check out this advertising. And it's just a way to show, as Philana said, like, you got to put the work in. And a lot of that work isn't necessarily needs a lot of resources. It's just the storytelling around it. And a lot of the e-commerce work you're going to do isn't going to drive sales in online channels. It's actually, the goal should be driving sales where 90% of your business is taking place. And that's going to be in the brick and mortar, like retail in-person space.
I like what Bukhar's doing here. This is all of a sudden we're starting to turn this into a workshop for people about the sorts of things they have to do to get into the digital space. And I'm like, that'll get them. That's going to get really resonate with the viewers here. So it's like, right, how can I fix up my my digital strategy? And
And I think it's important to recognize a couple of things that have been brought up so far. First of all, the focus on the Dunning-Kruger effect, that whole impact that wine businesses often don't realize, that they don't realize anything about digital strategy. If you ask businesses how well they're doing in digital, oh yeah, we're doing brilliantly. Have you got it? And then you ask them the first question: have you got anyone dedicated to an online platform or digital strategy? Oh yeah, we've got an intern that we get to do that once or twice a week. It's not really putting a lot of attention into a platform where most of the growth has taken place in recent years. If you're basically making it a part-time operation, I think that's one of the challenges, and a prediction from me to see that the wine industry is being forced into this situation where it's going to have to it's been cornered and having to recognise the importance of what's happening in that sphere. I want to highlight the importance of a couple of topics that we've got coming up just as we close out. We're just past the halfway mark, and looking at talking about issues to do with sustainability, looking at matters about the changing elements of the wine sector, looking at wine in comparison to its competing categories. So I want to look at some of those opportunities that exist for wine at the moment. The opportunities that are coming up for us. What should we be focusing on as a key element to take the wine industry forward this year? And I think, Dale, would you be able to kick us off with that topic?
I think we need to get one of the other panelists to go on recording with a bold prediction that they can have thrown back in their faces being false next January when we do this again. So I would encourage Falana or Boucard to come out with a bold statement for 2023.
And with that, here's my bold prediction. So I'll, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Our prediction is that premium and especially luxury price points will continue to grow and will take price increases more easily. And I also do believe that young people will come back and we will get them back, because it's important to be optimistic in this business. You have so many young sommeliers, new people in the wine business, influencers, that their main source of income, right? They're now consultants. They've created new businesses and new ways to make money after the pandemic, have been very flexible, that are depending on this wine business to thrive. And so it's important that we also continue to remain optimistic while being realistic with the data. And why that's important is you have to give, it's important because young people need optimism, just like, by the way, Generation X, which is my generation. And to be able to provide that, and to be able to provide guidance and have increased mentorship and more authentic marketing and really understanding what's in a bottle and putting, it's all about action is how I look at it. And when you do all those things and you're authentic, right, people will they will welcome what your brands represent, because they want brands that will reflect their values. And I do believe that luxury is going to continue to grow. It's, younger people, maybe they're not drinking as much, but when they do drink, they're going to drink better and they're going to be more specific about it. And I think that's a great thing, because their tastes are changing. And a lot of it too could also be taste profiles, right? It's really more about elegance, structurally, classically. If you think about what wine tastes today, is it going to be the big bad boy, high alcohol, residual sugar wine? That'll be interesting to see. Dale, I would love to see what that's going to look like a year from now, right? And whether or not the big box wines are going to win. I will say, in speaking with, that wholesale tier, I mean, yes, they are, it is what it is. They're not the greatest. However, they are effective. They can be if you work well with them. And it will be interesting to see when the big box wines, yes, they'll have the most volume, but will they be able to, there's a lot of competition there. And to battle it out at that level is going to be very difficult.
Okay, that's a bold prediction, which we can all watch closely, and hope with great anticipation that it's going to be something which will continue. I wanted them look at the impact of or how that's going to play out, especially given the impact of competitors in the market. We've got issues to do with the cannabis industry and competitors in the other beverage industries that are really impacting wine. What can we do about that, and what do you see as the opportunities for wine that we can learn from or combat against them in the future? Boucard?
I'm sorry. I just need to say marijuana is not a substitute for wine. It is just, I think we need to stop as an industry looking at consumption of marijuana as a threat to alcohol consumption. There is no data looking at this, and in fact, it is completely contrary to the way epidemiologists think about drug use, which we have to, if we're talking about, what makes marijuana and alcohol similar, they're both drugs, right? And so I think there is an important distinction here that, people who do one drug, drinking coffee, dramatically increases the likelihood of you doing cocaine. Smoking cigarettes increases your likelihood of using alcohol. There's these things called comorbidities, which is to say, if you use one drug, you're probably going to use another. And so there is not good evidence that the legalization of marijuana is even causing marijuana consumption to rise. And so I think that there's important distinctions here to say that I don't think that that's a big threat, especially to luxury wine. What I would say though, and this is me completely stealing your intro, Damien, but I am curious that I was speaking to somebody, and this is to throw it over to Dale, the role that the supply issues are going to play in supporting perhaps price, and the fact that we've had so many supply chain issues interrupting our ability to get the right wine on the right shelves in the last couple of years. Do you think that is one of the reasons that even if we do see all these tech layoffs, why high-end wine could prove to continue to grow in the next year?
Yeah, I think, and I think it's really important. My friend Rob McMillan has done a great job of looking at the wine industry during recessions. And I think one important point that plays into this is previous recessions, our category was in oversupply. And now we're not. We're in what is likely a balanced supply situation. And I do think that there is a group of people out there that in any way, shape, or form are insulated from a recession. They're insulated from higher gas prices, those type of things, and that consumer is going to continue to do what they do. I think one thing that you did hit on, Bukhard, earlier was the diversification of channel. Be in all channels. The more channels you're in, the better chance you have of selling your product. And that on-premise occasion is difficult, and the on-premise environment remains very, very difficult. Supply chain interruptions have smoothed. They've not gone away. There's still going to be some little bumps in that, but by and large, that's coming back. The days of 5x having to pay for a container, that feels like that's behind us. So the movement of that product can be very, very good. You also have to remember that, and especially because I made that statement about lower end wines, that's a global business now, right? That's not where that used to be in this country. That used to be largely or almost exclusively product that was coming out of the Central Valley growing region. Going into that, that's not the case anymore. Now that is a global sourced product, and right now, if you need some low-priced Cabernet or low-priced Chardonnay, Australia is not a bad place to go get that. Right? South America had some growing situations that it's pulled back a little bit with some of there. But point of that is that there's always going to be supply somewhere in the around the globe for you to get that lower-priced wine that can help fuel that. I do think Falana hit on something here, though, that on price increases. And at some point in time, you're just not going to have a choice. Your costs at that, and especially at that luxury level, your costs are just growing at a pace that you have to do something. Labor has gone up dramatically. Energy costs have gone up. Grapes are not probably, right? We're in a balanced situation. That's probably not going to pull back a whole lot. You're probably going to be still paying a premium there, especially when you start talking about those higher end wines they're going to be there. Those are still going to command higher prices. So I think at the and certainly I would say over $50, probably over 25. We're going to have to raise prices. That's just going to happen if it's going to be sustainable. How you do it and what your strategy is, that's going to be important on how you manage that as a supplier.
And Philana, I have a kind of an answer to this, but I was just thinking, you're pointing to the growth of this segment. Do you have a particular like consumer profile in mind that's driving that? Like, are there particular groups that are going to be able to afford and be receptive to buying more, better luxury wine that at least you're as a business trying to go after?
No, I appreciate that. That's a great question. We actually don't market to one consumer, we market to all, right? And the way that we do our storytelling is exactly how you see it. We hire, amazing winemakers. We believe in natural farming and low intervention winemaking. And the wines that we create are classically structured. And that's, that has served us as, being very successful in what we're doing. We're not saying, okay, hey, generation, X, please drink this. That's not who we are. It's extremely authentic and that's what we believe in. And I think I think being yourself, right? I mean, we were founded during the pandemic. Domain was founded during the pandemic. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation 5 years from now, right? Because I'm still a growing business. I'm brand new. So I am just, we're starting out. And because we're founded in the pandemic, we did things that, we're flexible, we're hustling, we compete with our distributors for attention. We invested early on in digital, as you mentioned, right? We're getting involved in understanding the data, right? I was on a fantastic panel, just the other day with Rob McMillan. I've known Dale for a long time. I have a lot of great respect for a lot of the analysts in this country because they've been doing it for a long time. But we're also disruptors, right? We're not going to always follow the trends. We're actually going to go the other way. And to us, it's about delivering a quality product, right? With the messaging that is pure and authentic. That for us is what we're doing.
I do want to throw back to you about the idea about sustainability. Can you start with the importance of your thoughts on and how wine can impact or focus on the concept of sustainability as a potential topic for attracting new consumers, or if indeed you believe it's one that we need to avoid? That'd be great.
I don't think it's one we need to avoid. I just think consumers don't care as much as the industry plays it out. And despite the fact that consumers don't care about sustainability, I think the industry is going to do the right thing more this year than they ever have before. Now, why don't consumers care? I think is to say that they understand that everyone's talking about sustainability, not everyone's doing sustainability. And so, the burden of auditing every brand, every company that says that they're doing things right is impossible. It's so hard to do. But we're seeing people like banks, I work for a bank, that are putting money on the table. They're willing to put their profits on the line, in part because of regulators, but they're putting money on the line saying, we want to drive sustainability. We're going to give discounts. We're going to do whatever we can to help companies reduce their emissions. You're seeing retailers, demanding that their suppliers reduce Scope 3 emissions from their supply chain. And so for me, I think the pressure to improve sustainability in the year to come is not going to come from consumers, because I think there's diminishing returns there. I think it's going to come from pressure of the B2B relationships that you have, demanding accountability, and the fact that just leadership at these companies are starting to actually care in a way that leads to real action. And even better, the price environment and the costs of things like glass, which are highly dependent on energy, and energy is highly dependent on fossil fuels. Like, the way to control COGS might be to start using less glass in your bottles. And 33% of the greenhouse gas emissions that wineries have control over is linked to how heavy your glass bottle is. And so there are things that the industry can do that reduces costs, makes their supply, their business relationships improve improve their bottom line, and it never has to be part of what you discuss with the consumer.
Okay, thanks, Dale.
Yeah, look, very, very interesting. I think, first of all, just to get it out of the way, you've hit the nail on the head on glass, right? We've got to solve that lightweight glass can, and we went through this false thought of I can either have an attractive package or a lightweight package. You can do both, and so lightweighting glass is going to make sense for the industry. It's going to do it. On the overall topic of sustainability, and this goes back also to, I think, what I've heard from Philana on her marketing approaches. Everybody's an individual. Go broad. Now there is a sector, a group of consumers out there that is nothing but sustainability, and that is the single biggest thing for them. It's not everybody, but it is absolutely a group of people that are out there. Wine Market Council, we did a trade survey where we looked at, asked the trade, are they getting more requests for it? Are you going to add more sustainable and organic products? And in both cases, it was definitely a yes, that they're hearing more from their consumers that they want to go with sustainability and organic. Organic is easier for a consumer than sustainability, because sustainability hasn't, I don't know, been well defined to a consumer. And that leads you to my big point on this is, how do you communicate that effectively? And I think that is the issue. And in our study that we did at Wine Market Council with the trade, that was really about, everybody said it was just hard to communicate, that they didn't feel it was easy to communicate this, that the package wasn't doing it. So to me, it's also about communication. The only warning I would put here is, there is not a subject in the world that you need to walk the walk stronger than this subject. If you're going to talk it, you better be walking it. And that is, to me, genuine. The genuine nature of what you do there really has to be tangible, and then figure out how to effectively communicate it.
Oh my gosh, Dale, guess what? I agree with you. I do believe that sustainability, we do believe it's a factor, right? I mean, over here with we work with the Lawrence Wine Estates. They're true stewards of the land. We run and operate one of the largest biodynamic vineyards in the state of California. It's important. People do care, and it's also expensive to do, right? It's very, very expensive to do natural farming and winemaking, and ensuring that what you put in the bottle is also going to taste great at the end. I also believe that we shouldn't be walking away from Generation X and also the consumer that's over 60. They're still drinking and they're spending money, and that's important too. And those are all important factors when it comes to growing the wine business and being successful together and remaining optimistic.
Yeah, I almost want to say that, like, don't walk the walk and talk the talk, walk the walk and shut up. Like, and I'm not saying, Philana, I know that what you said is not the case for you. I'm not telling you to shut up, but like, it's genuinely the problem with this whole issue is that companies have high incentives to exaggerate and to talk about goals that they're never going to meet, and that they don't have KPIs around it. And if you look at any lobbying group representing the wine industry, representing beverage manufacturers, every single individual company says, we want recycling, we want XYZ. And then their lobbyists go into state capitals and push against those things. And so it's very difficult to kind of trust any large company or any industry that they're not going to put their bottom line at risk to solve sustainability issues. And so it is really a thing that I think is for consumers very hard to just separate the people who are being honest and truthful. And I honestly think that's why your mindset around sustainability as a company has to shift towards doing it for your suppliers, where they have the sophistication and the capability to actually audit you and to make sure you're actually doing what you're saying. And I would love to see that accountability come in, because I don't think it's really going to come from the consumer. As much as we say customers care and check and double check, the reality is I think that is quite an exaggerated reality. I don't see consumers doing the research. And even if they do, it's so convoluted with fake studies and things that you can say and justify whatever you want and mislead people. I think it's a lot harder to mislead a Kroger or a Hannaford's or something like that.
I think that's some good words to leave us on. And I like the idea as we're closing things out today that we're leaving the audience with something to think about and wanting more. There's nothing worse than people getting to the end and going, God, will this thing be over? So let's bring it all together for each one of you as we close it out. I'm going to give everyone a chance to have a last word, and I'm going to give Falana a chance to kick off with the last word. But being the considerate and wanting to be even-handed person that I am, Falana, what final words are you going to leave us with as an opportunity for the wine sector to look at in the coming 12 months?
Thank you so much. I continue and encourage everyone to be optimistic. Nobody knew that the wine industry was going to have the best year during COVID. We stayed home, we ordered more wine, we drank better, and we leaned in on spending time with loved ones. We can't predict the economy, and we're not economists, but this is an industry that comes together in tough times, and that's important. The wine industry is about bringing people together, and we do come together in tough times.
Thanks for that. And Dale, I'll turn over to you. What are your final words? What inspiration are you going to give us in bold prediction for 2023 that we haven't heard?
I think I've done well on the bold predictions, so we'll see how those come out next year. I think that the things to remember in all these subjects that we've talked about, you have to do them in addition to what you're doing, not instead of. And you have to continue to do more. The market is becoming much more competitive, and that's within the wine industry. There's so many people who are doing so many good things in the wine industry, and it's your competition's getting better. So you have to keep pace with that and have to keep moving and pushing on with that. I think that Falana's right. We have to stay optimistic. We're probably going to be pushing the boulder uphill for a little bit here, but we need to come together as an industry and make sure we're doing the right things to make sure that we're all pushing at the same time to move that boulder up the hill.
Excellent. And Burkhard, what are you? How are you going to lead us out? Where are you? Where's the wine industry going in the next 12 months?
Two things. One, I'm going to agree with Falana, and then I'm going to disagree with both Falana and Dale. First, agreeing with Falana, the economy is unpredictable. Economists suck at predicting recessions. And so if you don't know what the road ahead is, stick to your values and have values worth sticking to. The other thing is, I think the wine industry needs to be scared. I think they need to be uncomfortable. And I want to share truths that don't make you feel good, because I don't know if the wine industry is going to be making the changes they need with the urgency they need if they're smugly sitting and saying, well, do we have to really change? So for me, the things of sustainability, the things of diversity, like I'm not going to ever pat the industry on the back for those things because they're not doing enough and they need to do more. And you're not going to do that by feeling good about yourself.
I know, but Burkhard, there are people that are going to be listening and they're working so hard and they are doing the right things for the wine industry. So it's important that there's people that are working really hard out there that deserve a huge pat on the back and are doing the right things. It may not be to the masses that what some people may think, but it's important that the wine industry is going to come together. It's a very resilient industry, and it's something that I am more than confident that it will come through. It's going to take some time, but I'm extremely optimistic. I believe in this industry.
When I see lobbyists supporting bottle bills, I will be on that same page.
Thank you everyone for your time today. I'm Dale Stratton, I'm Falana Bouvier, and Burkhard Nessen for your time, your comments, your openness, and your willingness to discuss the difficult issues. I just want to take the opportunity to thank you for everything you've contributed today. I think the audience has got something they can take away. We've gone over issues about the changing demographics and how the wine industry can deal with it, the challenges in adopting an approach that embraces both the challenges facing the industry and the platforms that are emerging that provide opportunities for us all to take advantage of, and really just recognizing that we've got some underlying challenges that we need to face. And with some luck, the contributions from the panel today will help everyone in the wine sector head on to greatness. And certainly follow Falana's call to arms to get us working together and looking to a great 2023, or certainly a 2023 that can be better than 2022. So on behalf of George Christie and the team at the Wine Industry Network, thanks very much for your opportunity. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed being a part of it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Great conversation.